Hello, Colts Nation. What's up, No Horsing family? Welcome back to an episode of the No Horsing Around podcast. As always, we're just two dudes talking Colts, and as we get close to the season, we are back together again. I'm one of your hosts, Steven, and Zach's here with me today too. Man, we're excited. This episode was purely Zach's idea, so I'm gonna let him tell what it is.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just thought it'd be fun right before training camp. Um, we'll do some over-unders in this podcast. And then after that, I think all the talk is going to be in the narrative moving forward is we're going to be full board next week training camp. If you guys got a chance to check out Steven's, short on YouTube the other day, yours truly, will be there next Saturday. I'll have a media availability looks like with Frank Reich and maybe a coordinator and then just some set players. So if you guys have any questions that you want me to ask, if there's anything that you really want to know, let me know, man. We'll try to throw something out there. We'll try to get some footage. I know it's a little bit murky as far as what we can record video wise. So stay tuned and we will definitely make you guys a part of it, just like we always do. So, Steven, let's just like we always have done in the past, let's dive right in. Over or under. I'm going to start with a real hot topic for me this year is Michael Pittman Jr. And this over or under is going to be yards. So, over or under 1,100 receiving yards for Michael Pittman Jr. I'll start it off by saying I think Pittman Jr. is going to land somewhere between 12 and 1,300 receiving yards. Like I think he's going to have a big uptick. If you look at so many wide receivers and just the history of the wide receivers in the NFL. Of course, we all love, a Jamar Chase freak story who just comes right out of the gates and just jumps on top of the NFL and takes it by storm. But typically speaking, takes about 3 years for that wide receiver to kind of get into his stride. We always know I'm a big PFF guy. We always know between years 3 and 8 that is your years with the wide receiver. Like that's going to be their best 5-year stretch. I'm going over. Interested to see your thoughts on that. I'm gonna lock it in. I'm going over 1,100 yards. Michael Pittman Jr. What say you, Stephen Burton?
So it's tough because I sit here and we've talked a lot, and I've got like a lot of ideas when it comes to the different receivers and what they could be, and then different players in general. Like I think Paris Campbell's 1,000-yard receiver, and the thought that I have that runs around my head is there's only so many balls and there's only so many yards. But even that being said, like I'm gonna go over too. I don't know. I think it'll be closer to. I agree with you. I think it's going to be closer to about that 1,200 yards because I just look at like Matt Ryan just likes to evenly distribute so much for the most part, and there's a. I know, like we joke all the time, like it's very unproven the wide receiving core, the wide receiving room, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of potential, and yeah, I don't know, but I'm going to go over because I think he's going to exceed what he did last year. He just was just over 1,000 yards last year, and I think now do I like we did the video, the hot take, and you've got Lewis Riddick and all them saying best receiver in the NFL. I'm not ready to go like
Yeah.
that far, but
Yeah.
I do think he solidifies himself as the number one receiver for the Colts. So I think he does go over 1,100 yards.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a big year. And if you're a fantasy guy, you're probably going to get a chance to get some real value with Michael Pittman Jr. He's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be your first, second, third, top 5 guy, but probably going to give you some real value. Matt Ryan, you think about those relationships that he's had with, Julio Jones. Obviously, he's a different type of player. He's a generational type of wide receiver, but man, he can really build that connection with his number one option, and he is not afraid to go to his number one option. So, quick and simple, Steven and I go over 1,100 yards, Michael Pittman Jr. Next topic is going to be Stephon Gilmore. Over or under 5 interceptions. Now, this one's a little bit tricky for me. With this defense, I don't know how, if he's healthy and he's playing solid, I don't know how much they're going to challenge Stephon Gilmore, honestly. but I'm going to say I think it's going to be about 5. That's why it's so hard for me. Like
Ooh.
I think it's going to be about 5. I think that's what he's actually going to get. Um, if I had to go over or under on this one, I'm probably going to go under. Not a Stephon Gilmore hater, but just by the metric that we're using, that 5, I think he's going to get 4 or 5 picks this year. I think he's going to be solid. I think you're going to see lots of passes defended by him this year. So he's so good at that. He has such a good, his arm length is so good. I mean, it's so underrated. He has the ability to fight that football all the way to the end, and a lot of times he just knocks that ball out last second, and that's how he makes some of his biggest plays. I'm an under guy on this one, Steven.
Man, it's one of those things like we love to disagree sometimes, but I'm going to go under. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to go under because I think that he's going to be the number one corner for our team this year for the Colts. And I think it's overlooked a lot of times by fans and by people that when you're the number one corner, they kind of don't test you. They might in the beginning, but they're going to shy away from that side of the field. I mean, we've seen, you've seen Jalen Ramsey shut down sides of the field way back, Deion Sanders. We've seen Richard Sherman take away an entire side of the field in the past where they just don't throw him. They don't throw the ball in that direction. Now, what's funny is if you asked me Kenny Moore over 5, I think I go over 5 for Kenny
Okay.
because I think he's going to see more action because I think they're going to start to avoid Gilmore's side of the ball, his side of the field. So, I mean, I agree. I think he gets a ton of batted balls. I think he gets a ton of pass breakups. I still think he gets, maybe 3 or 4 interceptions. But let's remember, too, like I thought about this as you were saying this. The guy who led the league in interceptions last year was Trayvon Diggs, but he also got burnt all the time.
Yeah.
So, like, they would burn him and they'd go right back to him and then he'd pick it off.
Yeah.
And I don't see Gilmore doing that. Like, if he shuts it down the way he's capable of, they're going to avoid his side of the field, and it's going to impact his numbers.
Yeah, he's technical. He's not that type of guy. Like, he's just not going to get beat a whole lot. If he's healthy and he's playing at full speed, all pro level, he's a technician. I mean, he just mirrors that wide receiver unbelievably. Great at closing in on routes, great at making up on routes when he's been beat a little bit. I mean, he's just a really supreme athlete and plays at the highest level, honestly. I mean, you wouldn't be a defensive player of the year, worthy player, candidate, anything if you weren't able to play that level of football. Next one's going to be a fun one. Matt Ryan, over under 29 touchdowns. And I am literally, Steven, if I could, I would smash the over on that. I think he is going to have a really, really good year. He's the type of guy, if he gets hot, he can actually throw probably closer to 40 touchdowns. I don't think he has to do that with this team because there's a guy in the background, in the backfield, Jonathan Taylor, that's pretty damn good. I don't know if anybody else knows that, but I mean, he's a pretty damn good football player. So I definitely think he's over 30. I can see it happening. And I think he's probably going to actually, just a little bonus, I think he's probably over 4,000 yards, over 30 touchdowns. I think he has a really, really good year in this Frank Reich system and kind of revamps the end of his career and has a really solid season.
Yeah, I mean, you're reading my mind. You're reading my mind. This is what happens when you do a show together for as long as we have at this point. I agree. I mean, we've talked about, he's being mentioned as a dark horse MVP candidate already. You hear all the talk coming out of the mini camps, and I'll be interested to see what you hear when you go up to training camp too. If you hear anything or see anything from it too with him, is man, he looks like a 2.0 version of Stafford to the Rams a little bit. He seems to be sliding in well. And I know, like any offensive player, I know we're talking with the caveat that we don't know what the receiving room is going to do. But man, I mean, we joke, he made Calvin Ridley a legit number one. He made Julio, as much as Julio made him, he made Julio a future Hall of Famer. Kyle Pitts, a rookie with over 1,000 yards at a tight end position last year. Man, I just think that, and he's going to evenly distribute it. That's the thing. Like Carson had a good statistical season last year, but we all know too, like he left a lot to be desired when it was spreading the ball around. He threw a ton to Michael Pittman Jr. and he threw a lot underthrown balls, things like that could have been bigger yards. Matt's got to hit those. Like I don't see him missing. I don't think he's going to underthrow like Carson did in those situations. He's way more accurate. And then I know you're really big on him, but Naheem Hines, like he's going to be coming on the back. Like that's sneaky yards right there too.
Yeah.
And I think Taylor's going to get in the pass game more too this season. So I mean, I go I go over 3,000. I think I go closer to like maybe 35, 3,700, somewhere around there. And then I think I go probably like 35 touchdowns. I don't know with 40 is a lot
Yeah.
and with Jonathan Taylor back there, I think we're all thinking he's going to be, 10, I would say 12 to 15 touchdowns, somewhere like that. And we're going to probably talk about him here in a little bit, but he's got to have his touches too. So
Yeah.
Matt's only going to throw the ball so much. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that he wouldn't. I mean, barring something bad happening.
I will 100% agree with that. And that kind of segues into his counterpart. He talked about who's going to hand the football off to Jonathan Taylor. A lot of people might say this number's low, but listen, I cannot understate the fact of how good of a season historically in franchise history that Jonathan Taylor had last year, right? Like what an unbelievable touchdown total, yards per game, yards per carry, everything that he did was virtually gold last year. And you're not going to have 20 touchdowns every single year. That's just not life in the NFL. I put it at 13 this year, over under 13, which is still a damn good year for any running back in the NFL. Anytime you touch double digits as a running back, that's very good. Now,
are we talking just rushing or total?
We are going to talk rushing touchdowns for this statistic right here. So I am going to. I think he rushes for 15 touchdowns. I think he gets the 15 number. 13 would be a solid number, and I'm not. If he has 13 rushing touchdowns, that probably means Matt Ryan did a really good job of converting in the red zone and completing the ball to tight ends, running backs out of the backfield, as well as Michael Pittman Jr. Jelani Woods, Alec Pierce, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think he's over 13. I said it there because, if you look at running backs in the history of the NFL, I mean, any running back who has over 12 in a year, I mean, that's a very good year in the NFL. So to tick it up to 13 and say, hey, he still even gets over that, that's pretty impressive. And this might be his best year. We might not see him use the same exact way, but this might be one of the biggest years Jonathan Taylor ever has in his NFL career. So I am going over 13 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns.
So I got to say one thing before I say my number. You should be a handicapper because the number's perfect, because I would have guessed probably around 13 originally. Yeah. Dang, what is it? People keep talking. 16 is what he needs to break the record, right? To break the record for most total touchdowns in your first 3 years.
I think so. Yeah.
I think he gets that because I think he gets a handful of receiving touchdowns too this year, a couple more than what he got last year. 13 touchdowns, man. Oh, I would have gone 13. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna go. I think he goes 12. 12 rushing, and I think he probably gets, about, I would say 4 receiving to hit that 16 number, which, like you said, I mean, I think it's really hard sometimes to really wrap your head around the historic nature that was last season.
Yeah.
And you're talking touchdowns in multiple games in a row, 4 touchdown game, 3 touchdown game. And I mean, you had Carson, who Frank didn't want him to throw the ball at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, he was getting a ton of carries. And I think we're both in agreement, and a lot of people at the same time are, that he's not going to get – I don't think he gets near the carries that he got last year either, if it all goes according to plan and Matt Ryan is who we think he is. He's not going to get the touches.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a basketball player. Michael Jordan, he only averaged 30 points this year. We mean
Yeah.
only averaged
yeah.
30 points this year. I know he averaged 36 last year, but he only averaged 30. Like, that's crazy talk. Clearly the best running back in the NFL when healthy. He is a driving force. He can do things that, quite frankly, not everyone else can do. He has the ability to run through people as well as run around them and just relieve them. I mean, honestly, he is a home run hitter in the backfield every single time he touches the football. There's a chance he will take it all the way. So, he's a special player, and the Indianapolis Colts organization should be just thanking their lucky stars that we moved up and drafted him. And let's hope he retires an Indianapolis Colt, because I think he will go down in history as the greatest Colt running back that we've ever had. I really do. I think he's that good. I think it's that legit. And this isn't just like recency bias based on last year. Ever since he's been in college, he's just been wearing boys down. That's the honest truth.
He plays well. He'll take the title of my favorite number 28, which right now, I love Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk is
Yeah.
probably my favorite running back in Colts history. But man, he's you've got, who is it? I think we've talked about Lewis Riddick said that if he keeps on pace, he will be a top 3 running back all time.
Yeah.
In the entire NFL. Like, that's, I've not heard, I don't want to throw salt or, throw spit or venom, but I've not heard anybody say Derrick Henry in that same
I do.
So.
I want to throw salt, and I want to throw
I know you do, man.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I hadn't heard from you about the
next
Madden
thing
ratings.
I was going to say, he's literally going to come in the AFC South this year, and he's just going to make people forget about Derrick Henry. I believe. He's just going to make you, just for 1 week, he's going to make you think, nah. Derrick Henry's good. He's solid. Yeah, that's fine. By the way, is Darius Leonard going to punch the ball out on Derrick Henry this year? Like, how cool would that be? I know he really wants to. I don't know. It's a side topic. We should do over under Darius Leonard punching the ball out on Derrick Henry one day. But for this purpose, we're going to end it up with Yannick Ngakoue. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to check in on Steven, but Steven's been getting a little bit of talk from Yannick, supporting his wife to buy the jersey even. Come on. The man's co-signing. If Stephen Burton does not have a Yannick jersey or a player shirt before this season's over, blasphemy is what we're going to put that on right here. We're going to call that blasphemy, because the man himself is actually commenting on his post. It's time to ante up.
Called my wife out too. Actually, said it by name. Because I mentioned her name. That Amanda, my wife, please, you need to let him buy my jersey, is what he said.
Exactly.
So yes, yeah.
So over under 10 sacks. I'll make it quick and simple and easy. Over. I think he goes over 10. I think he's probably going to hover around 11, 12, 13 sacks this year. He's the model of consistency. First of all, one thing that you cannot understate, and I do not want to jinx him right now, and I'm going to feel terrible if I do, his availability to play football games is one of his biggest attributes. He's just there, Steven. Like, he's on the field. That's such a big deal for players. In a world where we see so many stars having to miss games, sit games out, take plays off, well, Yannick keeps coming, and he has just an unbelievable competitive nature about him. He's relentless to the quarterback. If you'll go back and you'll watch his tape, is he impressive with his ability and his skills and his speed and his strength? But it's the effort. He locks and latches so well, maybe better than anybody in the NFL. He will not stop chasing that quarterback, and eventually, he'll pull you down on those coverage sacks all day long. And he's also going to go for the football too, which is one of my favorite things, a la Robert Mathis. So for me, he's definitely going to be north of 10 sacks. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. When you talk about him playing with DeForest Buckner, that's going to be a huge deal. We are going to create havoc on that side of the football field, not to mention you're going to have, Kwity Paye and Big Grove. Then you can throw in Dio and some of those NASCAR packages. And you've just got a formidable pass rush. I'm over 10 all day long. You get the last word on this one. What say you with Yannick, Stephen Burton?
I'm over 15.
Wow.
I think 16 is what sticks in my head. And I don't know, it's got nothing to do with the fact that Yannick has been actually talking with me, which is really cool.
Bullshit. Sorry.
But man, you just look when you were talking. That's why I was looking down. I wanted to kind of confirm. I mean, in 2020, he was on 2 teams and still had 8 sacks.
Yeah.
Like he's a force. He looks ready. I love to see, and I know everyone has seen it. He's fully embraced being a Colt. He's out there. He's asking questions like, "Where do I go eat? What's good high school football games to watch?" Like he's fully embraced it. It's not a new defensive scheme for him because he's played under Gus Bradley several times, so he seems to know it really well. He's had great seasons when it's come to that. I mean, I have him at 16 sacks. I mean, I jokingly say it, but Defensive Player of the Year, I think it's a possibility because you've mentioned it too. Buckner and Grover and Quiddy, they're going to take pressure off of him when he's playing, and he's going to be freed up. Because what are you going to do? In the beginning, they're going to double team Buckner, and it's going to leave him wide open. And then when he starts getting sacks, where do you go?
Yeah.
Like it's a very low. There's questions across the team, but it's a very, very loaded D line, and it would just shock me. I think he's going to have an amazing season, and I think Colts Nation has to kind of like be okay with the fact that we're going to have to pay a premier pass rusher at the end of this year. A lot of money, probably.
A lot of money, yes.
I mean, a lot of money. Go look at Miles Garrett. I'm not saying he's Miles Garrett, but go look at that contract. That's what you're going to be looking at, something in that ballpark, because we haven't had a premier pass rusher since Mathis. Yeah. Really, truthfully,
we haven't. No,
since Mathis retired. I mean, yeah, I go 6. I'm well over 10 because I just think he's going to play so free. He's going to be freed up on double teams. I mean, it's going to be amazing. But
it's also going to be a big key too. Just one last point. He's familiar with the Gus Bradley defense too.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not coming in here. A lot of these guys he's going to have to install his defense, kind of teach these guys, as the season goes along. He's going to be very familiar with what Gus Bradley, calls in game. That's going to be a leg up too as well. So that's going to be a big advantage. Big season for Yannick. I will 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, and he might be a bit of a voice and a leader because of that one up. He's going to be looked to lead. So, okay, you guys. Yeah, so we want to hear from you guys. As always, like we say, like, share, subscribe, comment. We kind of finally blasted past the 1,400 subscribers, which is really, really cool. I think we've got a goal of, I don't know, is that what? 1,500 or 6, probably about 1,500.
I thought it would be really cool before training camp's over to be at 15. I mean, my gosh, come on. I mean, that is super cool. Never, ever for 1 second do I want to feel like we take for granted the people who have been a part of this. So many names, and we mention them as often as we can. We don't always, mention everybody every single time, but one name for me, just shout out to Nomadic Brian, who always just brings it. He's always commenting on our videos. He's just great in every different Colts community platform, and we love that, man. Like just building those relationships and getting to know these people and getting to have these awesome discussions and talks. Super cool, man. I mean, I'm grateful to be a part of this family. And, we ask people to join our family, like, rate, review, subscribe. But we're in a way, Steven and I are joining your family too, man. We're becoming a part of it as well. And it's pretty special. And, before we get going full bore here in training camp, super big thank you to all of you guys for what you do and your support and just coming out and just showing out in the channel. Even though it's been a long off season, we are just about over and we are about ready to talk about football, man.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, we joke all the time and we say it all the time. We're super thankful to everybody who subscribes, everybody who watches. And like you said, Nomadic Brian, Wyatt's a huge one. Herbicide, who is so polite, is a Seahawks fan, and gave a great shout out with the fact that we've been able to get media availability for training camp, and I think we've said it too. That's due to you guys. That's due to everyone who watches it. If we were putting these videos out, and don't get me wrong, we'd be thankful if 20 people were watching. But because we have hundreds and thousands of people who watch these videos, I haven't even told Zach. It's minutia and things like that, but like one of the things that they look at with these videos is called impressions, which is the amount of times that people see it. And lifetime for this channel, we're at 1.3 million impressions.
Yeah, that's
insane. We're approaching 150,000 views total in the lifetime of this channel, which is channel-wise is only a little over a year.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I mean, we started the channel close to the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's crazy. We're so thankful for it. And if you're subscribed, we love you. We talk about it all the time. There's different ways. If you want to be a member, you can be a member. If you want to just subscribe and comment, we love you for that too. So, you know, we kind of always end these things. 465, whatever we're at. I love you. Zach loves you. We're out.